Where is Shamika at? The child's mother. I'm saying standing right in 2018. Relisha Rudd went missing March 2014, and yet where is Shamika at today? Tell a dime to get on the line. As in somebody bring her to me. I would love to talk to Shamika Young. Yes, I would. That is in fact a fact. As in a hidden clue of what should in fact come out of her own mouth pertaining to her child. In 2018, it's been a mighty long time. Yes, it has, as in time passes and nothing changes, or does it, pertaining to missing children, say, being discovered. What is going on? Where is Shamika at? I am, yes, very nosy, highly nosy. One of those individuals that want to, in fact, know what is a Shamika Young doing, knowing that it's 2018, her child is nowhere to be found, as in the whereabouts, and yet, what does that woman do? Would anybody, the viewer, one of you, know what Shamika could be doing when we don't see her? Because see, that will point into whether she wants the child to be found or not. Maybe Shamika doesn't want her child to be found. Maybe she does. Who knows? But once again, how you in fact use your free time up is to say what you want to in fact happen. And not many individuals think or consider that sort of thing. What you invest your free time into is what your life become, even if you want your child to come back home. So what is Shamika? Where is she at, and what time is she investing in looking for Relisha and her whereabouts, as in trying to find and locate with a search and find, even without a team or a crew? Is her and her mother Melissa doing that sort of thing when we ain't even know we're around? I'm such a different individual, which could be why I'm completely Hollywood, because to be different is to just open your mouth and say, yes, it is what is on your mind. And that's one of them things where somebody might say, don't be nosy asking that woman where she's. Well, I in fact want to know where Shamika is at right now. At the time we in all type of different, the world globally, yes, spans all over. Oh, and on top of that, like, subscribe, as well as the Discovery Channel. Yes, the Discovery Channel. The link is in fact provided below. Subscribe to that, so you know, right? But I'm just saying, we the society as a whole live in various time zones and not just one. We're spread all over the place, right? As well as I'm wondering if Shamika could possibly be spread all over the place. And I don't mean with men. That is not a joke. That's not a laughing matter, right? But what do missing mothers and fathers do when their children is gone and say hasn't returned? What part do they in fact play in all of it? Whether it's with police, FBI, chief of police, or whoever else, do they go out into the streets and look around to try to find their child? I need to in fact know. That is in fact my part in society as a whole as well, to ask those sort of questions. Because see, to not know whether these parents of missing children are in fact looking for their children, out as in going, whether outside of city state borders, or even contacting people that live in other countries that they might know those individuals, as in trying to see if somebody could have shipped the child off to another country, is to do that sort of thing. I'm thinking, I would hope that sort of thing will happen, where a parent ain't just sitting around waiting for FBI and chief of police and sheriff to find their missing child, because that sort of thing might not never happen. I stated before, there's all type of cases where missing children, in fact, their cases get placed on the back burner, and so sometimes it helps to do things yourself, as in get up and do it yourself. Dear Shamika Young and Melissa Young, they need to see this video as well, like everybody else. I'm going to say what I feel. Who don't like, I don't care. So let me see. Yes. Let me make sure I'm not jumping too soon, because I was going to question if Shamika had any enemies, and I know FBI more than likely question her about that sort of thing, because that has to play into situations as well. When a child goes missing and you don't know what was the cause, as in a motive, prime motive to begin with, a mother or father could have had enemies with somebody, and so to take the advantage or take out the anger or whatever else on somebody that you got, say, beef with, like it's called in the hood, is to say, yes, take somebody's child or something crazy like that and never bring them back, which was why I was going to ask that. I'm going to ask about Shamika's enemies in a whole completely different video, because I was in fact going to do that today, but seeming this paper right here, paperwork, doesn't, it's probably on the floor next to me. What you think? It's probably next to my toenails, my bunions. But seeming I don't have that next to me, I'm gonna ask about the sleepovers and Kahlil. Kahlil Tatum. You never heard of Kahlil Tatum? Is even a star himself, even in death, as in a grave. Yes, he is. Who didn't know that? To die and do something crazy. That's not speaking negative, but I'm just saying, to be involved with something that looks like a form of kidnap, in a sense, is to die and become famous. That's in fact what happens, right? I don't know if people know that or not, but Kahlil Tatum, the reason why I said that is because Kahlil Tatum in fact has his own Wikimedia. Ooh, you know what? That would be so cool if I started my own social media network, and call it Wikimedia. Wouldn't that be dope? I don't know where that came from. That was a blast of NASA on the end of my brain, shooting out ideals as I get. But Kahlil Tatum, the man that was involved with Relisha Rudd before she went missing, he in fact has his own Wikipedia. Is it Wikipedia? Am I getting that even wrong? Because see, my brain be all scattered branded, as I stated before. But you know how people in fact has wiki, hello, right? So I'm saying, if you go Google him, that in fact will come up, his name, his date of birth, and all that other stuff, and the pointed direction of disappearance pertaining to Relisha Rudd, and how he was involved in her, say, going missing, whether he played a part in that or not. Those sort of things would in fact lead to you becoming famous once you die. Because some famous people are more valuable in death, and many don't know that, or maybe they do. I'm thinking Elvis. But yeah, so moving on. I want to question the part of the sleepovers involving Kahlil. That those two things don't even fit, and yet they do. Does that sound right? For me to mention a young child, 8 years old, to mention a sleepover in text format next to a grown man's name, Kahlil, because that speak on... Yeah, if you think about it, it actually does. So, yeah, it's a missing gap in between that, and I don't mean sexual relations in the bed in the form of not a woman, but a child laying with a grown man, right? So, yeah, I'm wondering if at any time, if Kahlil was known to leave Relisha in his hotel room alone, any time of the day, and for how many hours. Did anybody question that, or did they not? Because that points to evidence as well, whether people want to think about that, consider it, or possibly never have, and yet to have a bright, brilliant mind such as mine. Hello, Discovery Communications, also known as Discovery Inc. Look at it. It's up in the left corner. Can you see? If not, put your safety goggles on. You might in fact need that for the questions I'm about to, compel myself to put right here for you to watch, to view it, right? So I'm just wondering when I say evidence, because some people question of could a young Relisha have, say, been sex trafficked, right? Which is why you will want to question that sort of things pertaining to sleepovers in Kahlil and Relisha Rudd, wondering if, say, at any time, if Kahlil was known to leave Relisha in his hotel room alone, as in when he would go out or come back and forth, leave her alone any time of day, and for how many hours. Because see, that's to say grown men could have been entering the room or not, between him Kahlil coming in and out of the room and leaving Relisha there by herself, being 8 years old, and say him possibly have given another grown man or another adult identity a key to the room, and not had a key made, possibly let them borrow his key, possibly for sex trafficking persons or purposes, given another individual, Kahlil himself, giving a key to his hotel room to another individual, man or woman, outside of his wife, Andrea Tatum, to allow Relisha, say, to sit there and wait as Kahlil will be at work and that other individual could come in and out of the room as they choose, or say if they was sex trafficking Relisha, giving them the key to have access to, say, traffic her or something. I haven't witnessed any of this questioning, and that sort of thing would in fact be on surveillance tape. It has to, because even hotels keep everything in their possession for sort of things, situations like that, because hotel rooms as well as motel rooms, the Red Roof Inn in which Kahlil stayed was in fact a motel room, and yet I call everything hotel. But a hotel motel would want to keep those sort of things on file, because people practice all type of things in and out of hotel motel, illegal actions such as drugs and all the other type of things, such as what I'm speaking on. Yes. So could Kahlil have owned any drug money? I don't think I questioned that right, because in my mind that don't. Sometimes I write stuff so quick, and questioning I write the wrong thing. Could Kahlil have owned? Oh, I read that wrong, because I'm so used to seeing own the logo that I just, yes, Oprah Winfrey's. You need to, the link is in fact provided below as well in the description section. But I'm so used to seeing the Oprah Winfrey logo so much, I just said owned in this question that I'm asking. Could Kahlil have owed, as in you need to pay back to somebody? And if you don't pay back to somebody, could they pay back you, as in the form of death, putting death on you, right, by the hands, or yes, something crazy like that, or getting back at you by taking, say, somebody that was close to you that you had around you, such as a young child, for whatever purpose Kahlil might have had that child around, such as Relisha. So yes, could Kahlil have owed anybody or anyone drug money? Because he had a history of drugs himself, the usage as well as being strung out from time to time. Him and Andrea in fact struggled through that, even through poverty. I want to know that. What do you think? Leave a comment in the comment section and let me know what you think about that. Could Andrea, Kahlil's wife, could the woman Kahlil had divorced right before he killed himself and before he killed her, as well as a month before Relisha Rudd went missing, Kahlil had in fact divorced Andrea, right? And then me asking that, yes, his wife, he in fact divorced her, and yet no reason was specifically stated. But once again, could Andrea have owed anyone drug money? Because to be too desperate for drugs and be female is to know you might in fact lay down with any moving man or anything, or dog, cat, or whatever, if you're forced to do that for money for drug usage, right? Because she was known to in the past pawn a ring when Gerald Wills wanted to marry her. Do you remember that? When I mentioned it time and time again, a man that was in a relationship with her before Kahlil Tatum, she pawned a ring for drug purposes, the ring that Gerald Wills had gave her. She got desperate for drugs. So I'm wondering, could this have been one of those situations where, say, Andrea might have owed somebody some money? When I say drug money, I mean, yes, I said that before, the payback aspect. But sometimes drug dealers, they give people a drug, and then you gotta say, if you don't have all the money at that time, you in fact gotta pay them, yes, the percentage, not completely upfront, when, say, partial drug. When somebody give you a drug and you don't pay them all right then, but you make a promise of paying them later, and yet you don't. And so now, therefore, somebody might in fact has to die in the end because you didn't, yes, upkeep on the upkeep of where you made the promise, as in keeping to the promise and paying them back. That too is in fact how people go missing and end up being found dead. That can point in the direction of even a ransom letter sometimes at times. But I'm saying pertaining to where you didn't pay something. Could Andrea have said, got desperate, needed some drugs from somebody that maybe she and Kahlil knew, or maybe not, maybe she just knew, right? Or was a random street man or something like that, and she made a deal with that figure, or say getting drugs and saying, well, I'll pay you back later, and say she didn't, and then they ended up taking a child, Relisha Rudd, the young child that went missing, that I'm speaking, which is this video is about, right? Because nobody questioned that as well, and yet I make all the interesting not things, but I question all the right things. I question all the right things and not the wrong things, in which people fail to consider. Andrea could have played a part in this situation more than even we could ever know, where people feel, well, maybe were Gerald Wills, her ex-boyfriend as well as current lover, before she died, they were still together despite Andrea being with Kahlil. Gerald Wills stated, well, maybe Kahlil killed Andrea because Kahlil was, say, sex trafficking Relisha, and Andrea knew about that sort of thing, right? The child. Supposedly, Andrea might have known or thought that Kahlil was sex trafficking Relisha, and yet that might not even have been fully the case. We don't really even know. Andrea herself might once again have gotten desperate and needed some drugs or something, got some and made a promise to pay the money back and failed to pay, and then the drug man might have taken a hit on Khalil's child or something crazy like that, because even that is known to tear up marriages. Drug usage, despite even couples using together, and say somebody not paying somebody back, that would in fact tear up something. But I don't really think that would have been completely it, because see, the time frame pertaining to when Andrea had filed for divorce, that was in fact her choice, what she wanted to do, and not fully Kahlil. They just made an agreement on that, but that was her ideal in a sense and not his. So the time framing of, say, February 2014 is when she filed for divorce. And then me speaking about her owing the drug man, that is a whole month pertaining to the time of when Relisha, say, went missing. From February, the divorce, and then say March 2014, Relisha goes missing. It's to say Andrea could have owed the drug man some money during that time frame, or maybe not. Who knows? Could Kahlil have got himself caught up in that same type of situation of what I just said? When you reverse it back, did Kahlil, say, made a promise to a drug individual, such as a drug dealer or something, to pay back something, and then failed to do, and then the only object to take would be Relisha away from him? Didn't I just say that? I repeat it, but to repeat is to know. You need to consider that. Could Andrea have still struggled with drugs before her death? I just asked that. So the question, because see, that to be too desperate for drugs is to do anything, right, for the drug. And so say if there wasn't money own, I'm saying own again, probably because I'm forced to say own with the own Oprah Winfrey's logo. Yes, buy own TV, right? So I keep saying own, but yet that's an endorsement as well, if you don't know, because I accidentally keep saying it, and I will possibly accidentally keep saying it. So yes, could Andrea, I said about the struggling with drugs, right? But let me see. If Andrea didn't, say, owe somebody some drug money or something like that pertaining to the situation, I'm wondering if Andrea could have gotten desperate for drugs, knowing she struggled as much as she did with drug usage, just as much as Shamika Young struggled and still do struggle with drugs, I'm sure, in 2018. Could Andrea somehow, let me see, could Andrea herself play more of a part in the story of, say, could Andrea have sold Relisha into sex trafficking for drugs herself, and say not Shamika Young, Relisha's mother? Have people considered that? I don't know if they have. I run in all different directions and not just one. To be a genius at mine is a say, right? But that's bragging, and it's in fact, yes, it is. It has to be, because for marketing purposes, not only am I marketing myself and my family discovery, but I'm also marketing Relisha Rudd, as in her story in fact needs to be told via marketing, because the Relisha Rudd story was not in fact given enough light, such as pertaining to mass media and her being shown. And there's various reasons pertaining to that. But yes, to say you're a genius is to say, I said that how many times? and to do things the right way and not the wrong way, as in you don't make money off missing children. No, you don't. I don't, right? But to put a story out there where it was failed to be told, many missing children are not, they're and more so brown children, black children, brown children, their story is going untold, which is why I'm right here right now. An investigation discovery, the link is provided below as well. But speaking on Andrea Tatum, I'm in question of, because see, I haven't yet to see anybody ask this sort of question, of which I'm questioning. Could Andrea have sold Relisha into sex trafficking for drugs herself? You would in fact have to figure out that to sell something, to get something, right? There's ways for that pertaining to a child going missing. Could Andrea have did that and not Shamika Young? Because I keep sensing and believing and thinking, and I could be right and real on that, pertaining to Shamika not knowing where her child is. Because see, what will be the point of a mother, say, having her child go missing, disappearing, and then here it is 2018, you get 3.5, 4 years, right? And then the child say not have Relisha appear. Yes, some people can go to jail for that sort of thing, or maybe not, depending on the situation of, say, if Shamika was to have some other adult individual just drop Relisha there as in a pop-up, like, here I am, I'm Relisha, and somebody had me or something. I mean, I'm sure Shamika would know, even if she didn't want to be found guilty in that and she's hiding her child, I'm sure she would even figure out a way to do that, as in not mishandle making your child reappear on the scene despite you possibly playing a part in her disappearance. You wouldn't want that to be going on for forever, as in for life, as in a little Relisha just disappearing and that's the end of that. If you're the mother and know where she is, you would in fact want her to come back or something, and not being hiding away. What does that serve? Some people can say, well, it serves Shamika sex trafficking purposes. Well, I thought she sold the child, right? Would she still be continue getting paid off of selling her own child into sex trafficking? Does that or does that not make sense? If I'm a mother of a child and my child go missing and I sell my child into sex trafficking, as in I give her away to somebody else to deal with her, as in to make money, would the mother continue to be getting paid off that sort of thing? I don't think so. Because there's in fact a ringleader involved in all of that, in the form of sexual transmission, as in the sex trafficking aspect, or where they might not want to give the mother, they might not want to give the child back, and not only that, they might not want to even give the mother a percentage of her pay, where she gave the child over to them sex trafficking, say Relisha, in the first place. If she did that sort of thing, the mother, I'm saying, I don't think a percentage could be made back to Shamika, the child's mother, and even the mother would know that if she has friends or family, or even if Kahlil was in that sort of thing. There's no way I'm thinking Shamika will be even given a percentage of her giving her child off to some ringleader of some sex trafficking ordeal, or even if it was an everyday man or woman such as you or I, and she's giving the child over to, say, sell her body in the form of sex. They ain't gonna want to give Shamika no money. They're gonna want to in fact keep the majority of it, and possibly all the percentage. So I'm saying, if people feel that, well, maybe Shamika is still in contact with Relisha, I'm guessing and sensing maybe not. Either the child is dead, long gone, rest her soul if she is, but if she's alive, I'm thinking ain't no ringleader gonna even want to allow that sort of thing, as in a sex trafficking ordeal, and a ringleader making decision and keeping a child pertaining to that. That person ain't gonna want no, because that's property. That's somebody else's property now, your child, even if you give them away for sex trafficking purposes, as in there's no getting it back, the child. So I don't really think that Shamika wouldn't say, I don't think that Shamika would still be having contact with that child, because that's a whole different ordeal. Once you're caught up in some sex trafficking thing, she more than likely wouldn't even know where her child is to begin with, to be in sex trafficking, because once again, that's property. It is in fact property. Slavery is and there's no say, because if there was say to that, when many African Americans, African coming to America to become African Americans, if that was so, and say we were before we got here, and say somebody, one of our ringleaders back in Africa, wanted to come to America and take us back despite, say, slavery and the white man, then that sort of thing would have been a go, as in an opportunity to go back to Africa during that time, if an African leader or somebody would have wanted us in the form of a ringleader, and them Africans in Africa practicing slavery, selling us off to white men on ships and all that other stuff. Back then, that was a no-go. Once you give something up, that's the end of that. That's the end of the rights, I'm saying. That Shamika wouldn't have no say even over her own child's life, keeping no contact or nothing, because, see, a ringleader of a sex trafficking ordeal would in fact send Relisha anywhere they want her to go. In submission, I'm saying, pertaining to slavery and all the rest. That is in fact the point of sex trafficking, even if it's job sex trafficking. I don't know if people even consider that sort of thing. Maybe or maybe not. But could Shamika, yes, so Andrea, could Kahlil's wife, before he divorced her or something crazy, it just, to me, this, all of it makes me be all over the place, because her case is all over the place. But you want to pick certain numbers out, as in who stands out the most and who doesn't. And Andrea does, even in death, before Kahlil killed her, as in the why aspect. Why would he in fact want to kill her, besides her, say, possibly taking to her grave maybe information pertaining to Relisha's disappearance, and maybe sex trafficking being that? Because, see, even if Kahlil would have sold the child off completely in sex trafficking, I don't think he would be allowed to have any contact with her as well. There's always the ringleader. The ringleader is there for a reason. Once you get into something, they in fact own you completely. Completely. As in, your mind is no longer yours. It's in fact theirs. Because the own property is something, it's in fact take all the way over, and not just in one area. You own all that person. And so even with Kahlil, he would possibly have no say so. So I'm thinking, if he would have had Relisha in sex trafficking, I'm thinking that would have been his own, as in Kahlil might have been selling Relisha's body himself, and not actually putting her into some, say, sex trafficking ring or something, because that would have been completely out of his hands to do that to her, say, put her into some sex trafficking ring or something with other individuals, unless, say, he was the ringleader himself doing that or something. You got to look all the way around it and not look at something in one way, as in one direction. Well, he put her in sex trafficking, and that's the end of that, as in when he was alive. Well, if that was the case, he wouldn't have no say, unless he was helping to run that as well, such as the ringleader process of running some sex trafficking ring. Ringleaders have more say than those at the bottom, is all I'm trying to say, right? And so, let me see. Could Andrea, yes, I wonder that. Could Andrea have sold Relisha for a fix or a high, such as drugs, and say Kahlil himself came home to the hotel, yes, motel, Red Roof Inn. Say Andrea might have sold the young child or something, and not Shamika, the child's mother. Andrea might have did that sort of thing, and said Kahlil for drugs, and Kahlil might not have known about it or something, right? And then he came home to the hotel or motel where he stayed, that Red Roof Inn, and say maybe that could have been the thing that made him kill Andrea. I'm guessing nobody considered that. Because, see, if Kahlil was a working man, a custodian worker at the shelter in which the child's mother lived, right? That's closeness in itself, right? When I say closeness, yeah, but it's just so much to this case. Because what if he did that? What if Kahlil was at work one day, right? And Andrea got hungry for drugs. And then without him knowing, and his whereabouts being at work, he came home to the motel and found that the child was gone. and say Andrea was fully cracked out, and I don't mean crack, but depending on whatever substance of Andrea, what her choice was, and not Shamika, the child's mother, Andrea, his wife. What if she was completely zoned out on drugs or something crazy like that, right? And with that, Kahlil possibly asking her, well, where is Relisha at? And come to find out, Andrea might have sold her, right? And he would be standing there, possibly devastated or something like that. But we still don't know if that was his child, as in, was he the father of her or not, right? So that's questionable in itself. Would he be in devastation if the child he was around all the time, Relisha, would have been sold into sex trafficking by his wife, but not by the child's mother? How would that make that man feel? Because even the relationship between Kahlil and Relisha has to be questionable as well. Why would a man, and I asked that in the beginning, why would a man be hanging around and buying gifts and everything for that young 8-year-old child despite him not being a father? What is the point and position of even him in that? What purpose does it serve? As in the intention, like Oprah Winfrey likes to ask. Everything includes a motive, or when you do things, everything in fact includes a intention. Intention. Why are you doing that for that young child? Yep, because Andrea, she pawned Gerald Wills, the man before Andrea ended up with Kahlil. She was supposed to marry Gerald Wills. And so she shared, it was like a love triangle in a sense, where you got Andrea in the middle, and then you got Gerald Wills on the left, and then you got Kahlil Tatum on the right. Before she died, she was in love with those two men, and she was also in a relationship, and Gerald Wills was known as her second husband, despite Kahlil Tatum being her first husband. But Gerald Wills, once again, as I stated before, was in a relationship with Andrea before Kahlil got with her and married her. And so in me saying that, she pawned Gerald's ring years ago. And Gerald Wills stated in the Washington Post that he in fact had forgiven her for doing that sort of thing, because she felt, yes, she needed a fix, which was why she sold the ring. To be desperate is to sell anything that is in your possession to get the drug that you in fact need during the withdrawal process. When people have withdrawals from a drug and they can't handle it, they would in fact sell their own mama, as it's been stated, and possibly even a child. The timing does seem off pertaining to me asking if Andrea could have sold Relisha, and yet it's still a good question, because we still don't know would Kahlil want to kill her for doing that, selling a child that he was known to be around. Because I'm thinking Kahlil, because Kahlil had a history in burglary, breaking and entering. That was his sort of crime, in which he served, yes, 2 different jail terms over that, committing those type of crimes, right? But he wasn't known to have a history such as a jail record in child pedophilia or anything. And remember, this was all during a time of digital era, such as the information era of you having technology, even through the phone, like cell phone. Say an individual can be tracked, whether they're looking up or having on their computer hard drive child pornography, in which Kahlil Tatum himself did not have before he committed suicide. The FBI, they went through everything of his to try to see, and nothing in fact was there. So in me saying that, that's why it's so vital to question what was his relationship with that little girl, because the gifts tell all. Why would you need to buy a little girl gifts like that? When he bought her an Easter Sunday dress, and yes, she did in fact look a lot like him. Yes, she did. Little Relisha did look a lot like him, right? And yet it's been stated that Irving Rudd is the father, and I disagree with that. Just because they share last name, that doesn't mean anything at all. And I said my father is nowhere on my birth certificate, right? My father could in fact be anybody. I'm saying that because to not have a father on your birth certificate is to say my mother could have easily given me somebody else's last name. We don't know we don't know what father is on Relisha Rudd's birth certificate, because it's never been stated. But that doesn't mean that Irving Rudd is her father. No, it doesn't. She might just in fact carry his last name. Kahlil Tatum could in fact have been that child's father, which is why I said the relationship between her and him. hold on. So the sleepovers, when I ask about the sleepovers, now I done asked about the sex trafficking, and I'm going to ask about that again. Sex trafficking, yes, statistics and all the other stuff, information and web linkage to all that. But yes, the sleepovers. It's been stated by Relisha's mother that Kahlil was known to take Relisha to sleepovers. Sleepovers, right? What kind of sleepovers? That's the question. That's the ultimate question. And I'm thinking Kahlil's death was the ultimatum. And the secrecy, as in the secrets or something, right? The untold, the mystery, and the unfold, which is why I'm sitting here today gathering the information. So what kind of sleepovers I'm in question of he was taking her to? So when it comes to the child's mother stating, because that's where the information came from, yes, in mass media, the mother of Relisha Rudd, Shamika Young, as well as Melissa Young, stating that Kahlil Tatum was taking little 8-year-old Relisha to sleepovers. So I'm in question of, does she mean at the shelter or what? Where was these sleepovers going on, and what was the purpose in that, and who was the connection, as in a vital link of no one knowing who that individual is today? Enough to say or something. The cause and effect, and when you do something wrong and then it comes back and bites you in the rear of the action of, why would you allow a grown man that's not the child's father to be taking her by hand, dropping her on and off, or picking her up, yes, and dropping her off to sleepovers? So once again, does the mother mean sleepovers at the shelter of where she lived? The mother, Shamika. Hold on, let me, what is that? That sleepover, because see, it stands out so much. Let me see something right quick. Let me look this up. That does not make sense. What's this? DC police released photo of missing Relisha Rudd might look like now. That's saying what she may look like today. This is how Relisha Rudd may look today. May look like today. This is how Relisha Rudd might look like today. That photo, age progression photo, that's in fact what this is. This is an age, oops. Oh, I hate when that comes up like that. This is in fact a age progression photo of what Relisha would look like today, and I don't think completely. Provided by Metropolitan Police Department. I don't think that she would look complete like this. No, I don't. Her eyebrows, because see, the older you get when you a child, Relisha's face, the older a child is, notice the more I won't say what's the word for it. The smaller something is, the smaller a face will be. But the older you get and the more you grow, looks and everything tend to expand. Such as the eyebrows would expand more. The nose, of course, would expand more, as well as the lips. If you notice right here, her lips looks more smaller. But then on her age progression photo, they look somewhat the same. A little bit. But they're more expanded, because this would, in a sense, represent growing older, maturing. The nose, see the expansion pertaining to the child's nose, how it's expanded, and yet this right here is all digital work by a team of police. So they can't really precisely know what Relisha would completely look like. Let me check something right quick. Okay, there we go. They can't really know of what a child would look like. So they try to give a little bit of a sketch of what she may look like, somewhat. Because remember, to digitalize a photo, there's alteration process of even that, or where you're pulling things back. You got eyes. When you look at a photo, you look at everything. See this right here, the eye fold. When she was little, it looked like right here. See that? Can you see my mouse move? I'm sure you can. But because this is more, your face becomes fuller and everything, and so for some people, some things sink in on their face, right? Some things expand, as I stated before. This will be one of those things. For a face to expand like that is to, in fact, replace this. It looks like it's double folded, doesn't it? It looks almost like it's 3 pieces of skin on, but in a sense, that's just the photo itself, as in her photo when she took the 1, 2, and then you got that 3rd up here. But on this photo, it doesn't look the same. That's how a team does it. Would the eye actually be fuller? Would this sag more and actually block this fold right here, the little extra skin piece right there? Because if you notice, this right here doesn't look, they don't really, when they do the actual like sketch in a sense, as in the age progression through digital form, right? I should show a video about that, but I might do that on another, the actual process of how they do it, the work, as in what goes into this. Her eye, because I've seen age progression photos that look very bad, as in some people, real hood people, like to say hit. Oh, she looks hit in the photo, right? That means in to say, yes, that it doesn't really look good. It looks completely unbecoming, right? I think they should have did something with her hair more so behind all of this, as in braided it. But just because you wear braids as a child doesn't mean she could be wearing braids today if she's alive, which is why her hair looks like this. Because to not know, I think somebody's drilling something outside. To not know is to not know. So you would in fact progress the hair as well, as in how long it might be, how short it might be, what the style might actually be in her preference, or even if she may have shaved her hair off. Relisha, if she's alive today, she might not even have full hair like this, and in fact she could be darker complected. But if she's nowhere outside in the sun, then that's to say she could have, in fact, maybe her tint skin might have gone lighter, right, and not darker. Who knows? We don't even know, right? I think what they should have used, though, this is a good photo. It represents her face completely, right? But to set a black and white photo side by side with a color photo is to say that the detail is there, but not all the way. Because see, the point and position of a vintage photo, I'm saying black and white, in fact, is a classic representation of historical things, black and white. There's a luxury to black and white photographs, which is why I like to take them in black and white, right? But black and white photographs have a tendency to hide detail in which you don't see, which is why this photo right here is more becoming of her than, say, a black and white photo. But this, in fact, was given and added to her story pertaining to when the child first went missing in relation to mass media, right? But I think even with that, it should have been the other photos more so of her of colorized, because this black and white photo, there might be certain things in which you can't see, because also black and white photos have a tendency to say hide detail. It does, because she has lines right here, and yet you can't really fully see them unless you look real closer, right? That's why I was thinking about the color. This should have been this from the first beginning. All her photos, I mean, is that black and white is nice or whatnot. I understand the point and technique, but to have an identity, say if she's hidden or something like that, and somebody see her or something like that, right? You gotta understand the connection between the two pertaining to the point I'm trying to make. This photo is hiding certain detail of her, just enough to even say hide it within this photo. Because I'm thinking whoever the design artist was, part of the police team or FBI team, they more than likely when they did the age progression, they more than likely took this photo and set it side by side so that they can sketch up. That's how they sketch up when they do it digitalized on a computer with eyes and everything else. It's usually eyes, nose, lips. That's how they used to do it back in the day, right? Things change over time. But that sort of thing you wouldn't want to do. And altering a photo in the age progression, because there's lines on this child's photo I can in fact see, and yet you, the viewer, might not be able to see. And that is a no-go in trying to age progress that's a no-go trying to do an age progression photo in the form of, say, color, as in how a child is going to look in today. Because see, I'm seeing something right here, right? It stands out a little bit. This might in fact be snot in the child's nose. I don't know if you can see this where my mouse is, right? But the black and white photo, what I'm trying to say, it has a shining aspect. Look at how her forehead is shining like that. And that would insist, it in a sense will affect how this, that shining on her, this right here is shining. Her nose is shining. Her lips is shining. Under her eyes are shining. That's what black and white photo does. It has a bounce back effect on you, the viewer, when you look at it and that shine is bouncing back to you. So that is in fact her right here, her eyelids are shining or reflecting back, right? That would in fact have an impact on how this photo needs to look. I don't know if FBI would know that sort of thing. See, because they're high class at what they do, right? And even this photo right here. See this? Where her forehead is shining, as well as under her eyes are shining somewhat. That is in fact what photographs do. Even when you take a photo and you add some flash to it. That's normalization of even a photo, right? And you could, more than likely, that's what they did in digital form. They add the light from here. Not took this photo and put it here, maybe they did, right? But they studied every detail of on her face, the lighting aspect, as when this photo was first taken and the flash bounced back off her face of where it shows, right? And so in order to do an age progression, they did the same thing with the lighting. This right here is not real lighting. None of this is real. None of this at all is real. I'm wondering if they, and look it, see this? This is where it's all digital. Most people fail to realize even that. They don't have, see, I have a full eye for photography and all the rest pertaining to even that, as in the digital aspect of what you, outside of just Photoshop, pertaining to even FBI, right? See this? This is unnatural. Her eyes, I'm saying. See her eyes right here? And yet her photo was in fact more than likely shot with flash. It may or may not, or might have in fact be enhanced for it to be placed out in mass media. I'm saying this first photo. Either the photographer, whoever took this photo, either had flash set, right, when they took the photo at first, or it might have in fact been, say, edited for mass media purposes. One or the two, as in to make it bright so that once it was broadcasted in mass media, it's not dim. But see, notice in her eyes, there's in fact no flash. There's no flash. Her eyes is completely dark, right? That's completely human. Both eyes are, or both, yes, right there. It's dark. There's no flash. And yet right here is flash, because that's digitalized. FBI, police, whoever did that. Most people, they don't see this. That right here will represent a flash of, say, how an individual would in fact look today, and yet not completely precise. But this right here would be, if say some, and this, if you don't know, this right here is in fact in every missing child's photo age progression photo. Does that make sense? This flash of how it bounced back to you to make you see the actual eyes, because that's a point they're trying to show you from the beginning, the eyes. Right, even eye color, black eye color, dark brown, right? Yes, they're showing you that sort of thing. But once again, this is an age of degrees photos as well. Her age progressions, they will usually more than likely be in every child's age progression photos. That's the point. That's in case you see them outside. I don't know for sure if that's that sort of thing, but I'm thinking that's in case, say, they're outside in the sun or something like that, and if, say, the sun was to bounce back a reflection of their eyes so that you're able to see. Yeah, that's important information for you being able to see a child's eyes at any time of the day, even in sunlight, and yes, stuff bouncing back, because everybody has a twin in this world. Yes, we do. We all do have twins. And yet to be outside and say, see somebody that looks like somebody yet, right? That's why the eye color and everything is shown on the missing persons flyer or whatnot. That's important information, because to know that everybody has a twin is to say you might in fact you might in fact run into a Relisha Rudd on the street, know or not know that it's her, and she might in fact look like this, right? But what would the eye color be? What in fact would the eye color be? This is to bring you in on that, because just because something is printed out on a missing persons pamphlet, it states eye color, but can you see the actual eye color? This draws you in. Make sure when you're looking at missing children cases and you're trying to see, well, it says this about her, never bypass this, because you could be standing next to a Relisha Rudd and the actual eye color might in fact be there, and yet you fail to notice. So let me see. The sleepovers. I wonder what that be in the Google. Sleepovers. What is the point of that? Why would you be taking a child to some sleepovers? I don't be liking this. I mean, I like advertising, right? It's nice. I'm not like trying to shame or say such and such is a sham when they have all this, but I don't. It completely ruins the online experience to have an advertisement everywhere that you go. That's not bad. I'm giving love to IBM and all the rest that choose to show off and market all their and market themselves. And yet you can completely ruin the online experience of an individual if you got advertisements coming up in people's face. And then, I mean, there is software to be able to block that sort of thing, right? But you want to be careful what you in fact download, because some of those things do in fact carry viruses. Be aware of what you download online to block pop-ups such as advertisements. So yeah, the sleepovers. Let me say this. Okay, so sleepovers. What would that in fact entail, a sleepover? I wonder whose house outside of the shelter in which Relisha and her mother stayed, whose house was Relisha known to stay at, and why? Why would she be staying at someone's house in the form of a sleepover? And what is the intention behind even that? I mean, what in fact will be a benefit and a reason to Relisha staying over people's houses or something outside of her living at the shelter, and say Kahlil Tatum taking her to those sleepovers in place of her mother taking her? I'm thinking, wouldn't a mother want to take her own child to sleepovers in place of a grown man? 50 was Kahlil 51? I think he was 50 or 51. Trying to get my screen to move. Can you please move already? Because nowhere where I see stated, I don't see anywhere stated pertaining to what these Kahlil Tatum was 51. I don't see anywhere stated the children's actual, or the child's whereabouts and who were these other children pertaining to the sleepovers. Her mother should have elaborated more over what these sleepovers was. And she never once did come out and say, retract any statements pertaining to mass media, such as, yes, not the Washington Post, but even local news coming out stating, well, these type of sleepovers Relisha was going to was this and that, Because see, to not answer back on what a sleepover was is to make people think and feel you sold your child, and you might have, into sex trafficking. That's why I'm asking that question about a sleepover or various sleepovers. Let me see. So whose house was it where she was spending the night and all the rest? Was it blood family members? I might be jumping ahead and I might end up repeating this, and I should, right? But it's important for specific detail of these sleepovers, these whereabouts with the sleepovers, because even that individual, whoever owned that residential house or establishment where Relisha was going to spend the night in a sleepover, is to say that individual could know as well where Relisha's whereabouts is in 2018. Anybody ever considered that? One of the individuals of where Relisha was staying the night, and yet that sort of information was being hidden and kept away from police and FBI. One of those individuals, the house, apartment, wherever else Relisha was given allowance for Kahlil Tatum to take her to sleep over at those individuals' place of living, those individuals might in fact know where Relisha is in 2018, and yet nobody's telling. And yet I'm wondering for what reason. Whose house? I'm thinking if somebody, see, that's why Shamika should have stated, because I'm thinking, okay, well, if Relisha was known to be taking over other people's house to spend the night in the form of sleepovers, whether it was grown men she was staying with or children, I'm thinking, why wouldn't those individuals in fact adopt Relisha instead of just having her come over and spend the night all the time, knowing that Shamika was fully cracked out on drugs and everything else? That doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't they have her, yes, be adopted her? Why wouldn't they adopt her? That doesn't make sense or something. Because to know that a mother is living in and out of homeless shelters, somebody's blowing their horn, I'm sorry. It's to know that somebody's, okay, because it is instability that involves instability aspect of land or living in and out of shelters, right? Danger could in fact await a child in that, as in the wrong hands could get a hold of Relisha. It could be a man or a woman of a little girl just being in and out of shelters like that, right? And so I'm thinking the individual that is helping to run these sleepovers outside of Kahlil Tatum and say Shamika knowing, but I'm thinking wherever the child was staying, why didn't they just keep her, as in try to file for custody pertaining to where Shamika couldn't properly take care of Relisha and raise her? That was the point in existence of her giving Relisha off to that older man, 51 years old, Kahlil Tatum. Why didn't any of these individuals with these sleepovers file for some custody as an agree? Because I'm wondering how the household was or where Relisha was staying the night at. That's why I'm asking that. If it was a good home, a good household, and Relisha wanted to go over there and stay the night, however times or how many days or ways, right? Those individuals could have taken Relisha up under their roof so she wouldn't have to be in the arms of a Kahlil Tatum. Not sexually, but being all up under him like that. And not only that, it will be a place for her to be able to eat, possibly hang out, and what else? Have protection from the elements. Because sometimes living at a shelter is not, yes, a shelter sometimes is not the best environment for kids. And I've said that how many times before. It's living at a shelter is in fact not a place where you want to raise your kids, because it's all type of drug addicts surrounding you, and that's not to say anything bad about those sort of individuals. That's in fact not it, right? But at the same time, you just don't know. You don't even know what could happen, or you putting your child in that's just no. So let me see. I asked that. I said yes, the adoption process, as in allowing her to stay over there, the sleepovers, because Shamika must have had issues, relationship issues, seeming she had instability issues already. To living out of shelters is to know you have instability issues, right? And so when I'm asking that, I'm thinking even a person would have allowed not just Relisha to live and stay with them, whoever the individual was that was doing these sleepovers, whether it was various ones outside of just Kahlil Tatum himself. I'm wondering, when Relisha was spending the night, why that individual, whoever home she was staying in, why didn't they just allow the child, not just the child, to live with them, but possibly the mother as well, such as Shamika? Something is wrong with that picture. I said the part of she might be unstable because she does use drugs, right? Which is why she's living in and out of homeless shelters. I had to repeat that again. But there's something more to that with the sleepover, or various sleepovers, taking a child and just having her be dropped off over to somebody's house, and yet nobody's saying, not even Melissa Young, the child's grandmother, of whose house it was to begin with, the sleepover process. I mean, what is that? Why would you want a young child just going over somebody's house unless you really knew that individual or where she was going? Maybe Relisha's mother and grandmother knew the individual very well of where Relisha was going. Or maybe they didn't. And that's an issue as well, which is why people sometimes that don't know how to take or care for kids, that's why they shouldn't be having kids, because to just allow your child to be, say, being around a grown man, 51, or allowing her to spend the night at a hotel with him or motel, Red Roof Inn, as well as allowing him to drop your child off over people's house that you barely know, is to say anything could happen, as in a tragedy, or even your child just going, say, or not just going missing, but possibly end up dead. To not know individuals on a very personal level, as some of these people claim to have known. We can't know everything about everybody, no. Sometimes the people you do know, they do things in which you would never even thought or considered, right? But yeah, that's just, I don't know. I'm thinking that will be Shamika's job to make sure Relisha gets to the sleepovers. Yes, to the sleepovers, making sure her child, her daughter, female at that, get to a sleepover or various sleepovers, and not a man's job to do that sort of thing, which is not the man not being the child's father. So there has to be something more about that, or something. That's not right, or something. Oh, there's me. Hello. Do you see me? I hate to show off, and yet I should, and I could, and I will, right? That is in fact me, Aviva Films. If you don't know, now you know it, and it just in fact got more real. Can you see that? Aviva Films. That in fact is my face. The layers and the detail. That's why I said like and subscribe. Yes, as well as Discovery Channel. The link is provided below. That's why I gave the introduction in the beginning. Oops. I'm sorry. Let me go back. What is the point of some of these people's choices? We all, in fact, make mistakes in life, as in choices, but to allow your child to just be going off with random men to various sleepovers, and not just one, is to say anything could happen at any time in that, as well as a possible death of an 8-year-old child. And I'm repeating, and I should, all over again. Because a child might be alive, she might in fact be dead. We don't even know. And that sort of thing would in fact happen. Because you don't know what enemies, and I'm tying that into that. You don't know what type of enemy Shamika could have even had at the shelter herself, or out in the streets with various men, because she liked to keep various men. And not only that, Kahlil himself could have in fact had enemies, and Andrea could have in fact been one of them. Just because you're married to somebody don't mean that you love them for life. You might in fact want to put them out your life, as in Andrea herself wanting to get rid of Kahlil, and not possibly over some sex trafficking. There could have in fact been more about that, when it was stated by her manager, the love-hate relationship she had, how people loved her and sometimes hated her, right? Andrea. That's to say, you never know what enemies was on the other side of that. In the streets, I'm saying. The street activity where it points into sleepovers, even with that, you don't know people how their relationships be with other people, right? So, let me see. I just always question if it was kids. What other kids and where are they? And I'm sure FBI chief of police, whoever would have in fact interviewed those kids, I'm thinking they would and they should have, or maybe not. You don't know the situation pertaining to that if they were interviewed. But why isn't kids involved in more kids? And not only that, why didn't Kahlil at any time have his own kids? Because even they would have information pertaining to the reason of not only him killing himself, or why he killed his wife, as well as possibly why Relisha went missing in the first place. 51 years old is old enough to have some kids. And yet it was never stated in the news mass media whether Kahlil Tatum himself have had children. That sort of thing is vital because it helps point out, yes, and where you can actually go and get the story from one of his children. I'm sure Kahlil Tatum may, unless he couldn't have any or something. Like they say sterile. Country people say sterile, however you choose to say it, when a man can't have kids. And some men, in fact, go for vasectomy to not be able to have kids, right? But I'm thinking somewhere at 51 years old, or even before, you would have wanted to have kids, or maybe a jail term, serving 2 jail terms, possibly would have prevented that. But I'm thinking maybe not. Because women are allowed to, in fact, in various jail penitentiaries, jails, once you get married and have a wife, she's in fact able to allow to be, you're allowed to have sex in jails. What I'm trying to say, you're given a room by the actual jail or penitentiary itself. That's a place where you live and stay. So I would say penitentiary house. So you are in fact given privilege as a married man to have sex with your wife while you're in jail, and yet Kahlil has never had children. That's just so odd and strange in itself. I'm thinking maybe he had children somewhere, possibly that he never told, or how some people be married, have sex with other women, make and create children, and yet they know they keep it a secret, and yet they don't tell other people, not even their own wife. But if he did have children and they was close to him, they would be able to say what the situation was and why. Yeah, so where do grown men stay the night with little girls? Where do they stay? Where do grown men stay the night with little girls that are only 8 years old? And why would they want to stay with little girls 8 years old? Did I ask that question before pertaining to this hotel room and all this on surveillance? Of if Relisha could have any time, see, that's Relisha right there, and Kahlil going into the room. He's unlocking the door with the key or not, whatnot. Did I ever ask, was she spending the night ever in the hotel room with him? Because see, that will point to more too. And I'm sure surveillance tape has to be in the hotel records, even if he did that sort of thing, as in surveillance tapes, as I stated before, run 24 hours, enough to pick up if a child is spending the night at a hotel, such as this Red Roof Inn with a grown man. That would tell what more was going on, even in the form of molestation or something. Or whether he was a child's father and yet nobody knew, right? It could point in 2 different directions is all I'm trying to say. So, let me see. I'm asking, was Kahlil known to stay the night with Relisha at some other place outside of the motel, that Red Roof Inn, in which Kahlil stayed and lived? Or was Relisha just randomly dropped off over random people's houses upon the request of the child's mother? Does that or does that not make sense? Was Kahlil known? Because see, if you question sex trafficking, that's the question knowing that a street man who has served time for breaking and entering as well as burglary, he would in fact know that surveillance tapes are there. To live in a motel and be a street individual is to know that you're under surveillance any time of day, right? So that's the in fact question of, say, if on the motel, hotel, Red Roof Inn he lived in, what if, say, there was no showing of, say, Relisha spending the night? That wouldn't in fact be on the tape, but there is imprint such as a time and a date of the tape showing whether the child ever left out at a specific nighttime, such as 11 p.m. or 10 p.m., coming out of the room and him leaving with her to, say, take her somewhere else to, say, spend the night. I'm just wondering if Kahlil Tatum was living between different places and, say, not just that hotel, motel, Red Roof Inn. If you want to question, as in, could he sex traffic the child, right? And, say, not wanting it to be seen on surveillance of not the actual action, but showing him and her coming in and out of that room, because even Kahlil himself once again knew that he was being seen and tracked and traced on a surveillance tape. So would he have taken her somewhere else to, say, do certain sex practices such as sex trafficking or something? I'm just laying that out there for people that question. I sense and believe the child is dead and gone, and yet not everybody agree with me. But when I'm questioning for other people the sex trafficking aspect, how could it have taken place? Maybe it wasn't in fact taking place at that actual hotel of, say, him selling her, or even the mother selling her body. I'm saying maybe he was prone to stay and live amongst various places. And see, the only people that will be able to know that sort of thing is FBI, chief of police themselves. They would know whether Kahlil Tatum was living amongst various places and that. And I'm wondering if they would have released that sort of information out to the public so that they can know, to be able to know where to look and find a missing child. Because to get the public involved is to tell them as much as you can, but not all the time. Police and FBI don't always tell stuff. They leave you to just figure out, which is a mystery in itself, because to have somebody missing, you would think they would want to tell just about everything so that you can look or try to help other people look or join up on a team to try to be looking, but they don't give you enough. So you're just forced to be on your own and fill in the gap. But thanks to social media, people of the public, there was a case that was solved. I'm gonna have to look that up and feature that in another one of my videos of a gentleman that had in fact solved a missing persons case based off of him running an online blog. You see what I'm saying? Where police team of police officers and sheriffs and FBI, they weren't able to solve that missing persons case, and yet that random person that nobody knows, but now they do in the public, yes, he solved that missing persons case. That's what technology does for you and I. It gives us the advantage in even that. Knowing where to look. Having a mind of not being a follower pertaining to you just giving something and allowing that sort of thing to lay dormant, such as the information, or going with what everybody else is saying. Because to go with what everybody else is saying is to not be able to dig out clues, looking at things in different angles, or where, say, even they might not look, right? So let me see. Yeah, I wonder if, Kahlil, because that's a good question in itself. Could Kahlil have been living or even spending the night in other places outside of just that hotel motel? And not only that, could Shamika herself have been spending the night or even living in other places outside of the shelter? Did I just say shelter with Kahlil? I meant hotel motel. If Kahlil was living in other places, I think I said shelter for him. Yeah, if Kahlil was living in other places outside of the Red Roof and that hotel motel, if FBI know about that, if he did, not saying he did, but I'm just questioning. But also if the child's mother, Shamika, could have been doing that same thing. Because to have either one of them, say, living in and out of places outside of where they reside, whether a hotel or a shelter, mother or Kahlil, it's to say somebody else could have been involved in even that, the child's disappearance, I'm saying. the child's disappearance. You could be living somewhere, staying with somebody or something, despite you living in out of shelter, or say living in a motel or hotel, Red Roof Inn, but also living on the side somewhere else with somebody, or even living with another woman and your wife not knowing, such as Kahlil being with Andrea and say cheating on her or something like that, living on the side in and out of another woman's house or something, and say something happened between you and that other person and the child ends up missing, as in that person get rid of her or something. People got to think outside of the box, as in way outside of the box, in the form of fashion of what's been never really thought of before, of what I just stated. Could either one of these two individuals been living in other places, not Relisha, but her too, living in other places, and then say somebody just randomly want to get rid of the child or give her up or put her in the hands of somebody else? Taylor stated that maybe Relisha could be in Atlanta, Georgia, with say Kahlil Tatum's family. That's a possibility. That was a good look on your end. Yes, Cece, aka Taylor, aka Cece, right? When you brought that to my awareness. But I'm also questioning that too. Kahlil might have had some other place of living outside of that hotel we might not know of, right? And even police and FBI might not even know of. They might not, right? People been known to live in and out of houses, despite them, I'm saying, live in other houses or other residential places or apartments with other people, despite them having their own place of living. That's all I'm trying to say. And so for a child to get mixed up in between those two environments is to say, well, where is she completely? And when I say living between, I'm saying more so in state and not out of state, not like Atlanta, Georgia, more so in the Washington, I won't say Washington local area, not that, but more so, yeah, the Washington DC area, surrounding areas, possibly outskirts, somewhere that Kahlil could get to in a matter of minutes or moments when he got off of work or something, or want to go there sometimes to lay his head to go to sleep or something, or even Shamika herself in the same city environment. Because to be paying rent to a hotel keeper or motel keeper, such as Kahlil paying money to Red Roof Inn to live there, and that being almost the amount of you living in a home or apartment or something, because some homes are in fact cheap monthly when you rent out, right, or rent from somebody. It's to say he was paying the same amount he would somewhere renting from somebody, right? And then not only that, if he was involved in drug deals or drug transaction, it's to say he might in fact have had more money or something. So I'm thinking he would, even in connection, would have been, yes, possibly living somewhere else in the same city or something. And just having that hotel there for whatever purposes, it was never stated, because see, for Kahlil, I mean for Andrea Tatum to end up dead in a hotel, is to say this man loved to be living in and out of hotel motels or whatever, right? A motel is much more, it's not high class. Some people would consider it trashy, which is where some people like to go and have sex or something, and those type of people that cheat on people as well, right? They use those. But man, that's off the hook to not know what he was using the motels for and moving around despite him being in poverty. But the sleepovers, they play in the part with that as well, because to be moving around like that between different motels and hotels, and then your wife end up dead, is to say, what all was y'all practicing in the process, or where you inject a child into that situation as a go along, the way she's going along with him by hand in the video right here. What else, what all was going on in these people's world enough for this child to come up missing like that? To have drugs involved in anything on either side, Andrea, Gerald Wills, Shamika, the child's mother, as well as Kahlil Tatum, is to say anything can go wrong at any time of day. as in who needs money, who owes money, as I stated in the beginning of the video. Anything, that type of situation, you would never want a child involved in to begin with. Because where somebody failed to pay, as I say, somebody got to die. Even in a drug transaction, I'm rehashing what I said before, but even that plays into, say, somebody if they live somewhere else. That's an easier way for a target, such as somebody that needs to go to jail, for even them to get away. To have too many environments you live in between is to not be able to locate a child once she goes missing, and that's common sense in itself. So, let me see. Yep, for a grown man to sell the body of a child does sound completely horrid. It does. It does not sound good at all. So if Shamika wanted Relisha to spend the night with other people, if the child's mother wanted Relisha to spend the night with other people, why didn't Relisha just say have those individuals pick up? Why didn't Shamika? I'm sorry, I said Relisha. Why didn't Shamika, the child's mother, have those individuals in which the sleepover Relisha was going to? Why didn't the child's mother have those individuals pick Relisha up from, say, the hotel or motel, the Red Roof Inn, or where the child was staying with Kahlil? Why was that? I'm wondering myself. Why wouldn't she just have them come pick the child up, or just pick her up from the shelter? Or maybe Shamika wasn't there, because I know a lot of times shelters put you out. A lot of times shelters put you out in the daytime, and then they also give you a curfew or something. So something about the time frame in relation to that is quite weird in itself, because I'm thinking, why not just have, I'm repeating again, why not just have them pick her up, drop her off, and whatever else needs to be done with that? Why Kahlil has to do everything? Why did he have to in fact do everything? Not only just care for her, buy her clothes and all this other stuff, but also take her to sleepovers, out of all things. That's to say a mother wasn't doing her job or her part any time of the day. She was just allowing her child to be given over to anything and anybody for whatever reason. But for what reason? That's sad in itself. I'm thinking somebody, whoever she was going to spend the night with, Relisha, I'm thinking whoever the sleepovers it involved, I'm thinking they should have been able to, say, sit right outside the hotel door or whatever of where she was at, and then Kahlil, say, walk her downstairs or something. So maybe that's where the sex trafficking question come into play, because surveillance cameras, in fact, pertaining to video, surveillance cameras oftentimes sit outside of hotels or motels such as Red Roof Inn as well. So maybe Kahlil didn't want that type of thing on the tape. Somebody picking Relisha up from the Red Roof Inn where he lived at. Maybe he didn't want that on a, or maybe Shamika didn't want it on an actual tape or something. There's something more. There has to in fact be something more to that. Why okay, if you're gonna have a child sleeping over at sleepovers outside of where you live, and you're a grown man and she's not your child, why not just have them just pick her up? That doesn't make no sense. Maybe Shamika didn't have a car. Maybe Shamika was completely cracked out. I think she was, probably still is today, which is why more than likely Kahlil had the child more than anything, for Relisha wanting to escape that. Because she called the shelter in which they lived at the trap house. That's what Relisha, she didn't like being there. She more likely to be around Kahlil, but that's weird. That is odd. Some of the choices even you and I make in life. So let me see. I'm wondering if Relisha was sharing beds with grown men. That in itself is sad, and yet it must be called out because that's a science too. Molestation, child pedophilia, and all the rest. It's gruesome is what it is when you think about it. Could that sort of thing have been at play of, say, Relisha, yes, laying up with grown men for money or something? This is a video question. Many of us question of whether Kahlil shouts out the Fearless J 2008. This is a promotion to you. If you want to follow him, you see that right there of where he can be found. Fearless J 2008. So yeah, so it's still the question of so many people, but we get to that later. But whether he was her father or not, Relisha's. So could Relisha have been sharing a bed with grown men in any environment for money making profit, such as a sex trafficking being their situation, or even in today if she's still alive and unfound? What could Shamika or even Kahlil have been having Relisha do at the sleepovers? I just rewind back to the beginning of the tape right here, me sitting. What would a mother, I mean, how could a mother live with herself, say, sharing her child with some grown men to make some money or something? What to get out of that, and what is to be had in that? That just does not make sense to me. That's to say a problem is there and would have to be or something to make somebody want to do that type of thing with their child. That shows a no good character, I'm saying, for a mother to just be, say, selling her child off for whatever, or allowing a grown man to do that sort of thing. Why would you want to do that? And not only that, what was the purpose of having her to begin with? But who knows? I'm just questioning. We probably will never know. Who knows? I don't know. So I asked that before. Sharing the bed with kids. No grown man or woman should want to share the bed with kids. There's nothing a child could offer you and I. Surveillance. Yeah, and at the shelter which Shamika lived at and Kahlil was known to work at as a custodian worker, such as a janitor, right? It's one and the same, right? Custodian just means, yeah, it's just elevated in the title, right? But it's all the same, janitor, custodian. Exchange between wording, interchanging, I should say. I wonder if Kahlil could have personally been involved with any other women at the shelter he worked at. Is that a good question for me to ask? Should I ask it again? I wonder if Kahlil could have been involved with any of the women at the shelter. Relationship wise, sexual wise, friendship wise, supervisor, management wise, becoming friends off of the job or after you're done working, or possibly over the telephone or text, or however people interact with one another when they're not at work and yet they're in their free time. Could Kahlil have been, say, because see, for an individual to be, say, a janitor custodian, right, at a homeless shelter, is to say that any type of individuals could have been working there of any kind with any type of history, knowing that he had a history of burglary as well as breaking and entering into people's homes or place of business or whatever type of location, right? That was his crime type of thing. And yet to be able to be given opportunity, a privilege of working at that type of place, such as a shelter, is to say they take all type of people in of all type of colors and everything else. Yes, with crime and all that, right? And so that's why I question the female aspect of could he have been, say, friends or something with somebody that worked there, such as a female? And maybe if Andrea knew or didn't know, you question that too. That's a vital question as well, to ask that. For me to sit right here on this camera and ask that too. Could that sort of thing have been? And why do I ask that? Because people have all type of connections with all type of people, right? And say to go disappearing, and yet a young child, right, out of not out of a homeless shelter, but out of your own hands, and say you're working with the individual female. If Kahlil was working with somebody at the shelter, let me pause right quick. If Kahlil was working with somebody at the shelter, and say that was a female, that's to say Relisha might or might not have knew about the individual, or possibly could have been introduced to that individual, right? But what type of part or position would that individual, such as a female worker, friend of Kahlil at the shelter, what would that individual have played in the life or world of Relisha herself, even in relation to her disappearance as well? Could that sort of thing, say, match up and all that, as in be a clue if that would have happened? Because people are known to have all type of friends even at work. Did I say that already? And sometimes they tell and sometimes they don't tell, for whatever reason. But see, once a person is dead, they're not able to tell. But you will be thinking, once somebody goes missing and then somebody commits suicide or something like that, you would think an individual, say if it was a female or even a male, if they were friends with Kahlil and say they worked together at the same shelter or place of business, after a missing child go missing, you would think they would in fact come out and say, well, I knew him and this is the type of person that he was. And not only that, if there was more information that they knew. People do that type of thing, but some people don't, based upon in the black community the no snitch policy, in which I don't believe in. When you know more about stuff and yet you don't tell, especially when it comes to stuff like this, missing children. And not only that, say a female, if there could have been a situation with that, I don't think Kahlil possibly had any enemies himself at the shelter in which he worked, in which the child mother lived at. No, that's why I questioned when I said, well, maybe the child's mother had enemies at the shelter. You don't know, but it's all over the place and it points in all type of directions. So let me see. I said this before. I stand in question of if Kahlil could have been friends, yes, with many females who worked in any one of the departments, in which, say, if he wanted to ship Relisha off with them to another state, as in, say, if at the shelter he knew of any females in any department. Yes, shelters have departments as well, right? He was into cooking. No, he was into cleaning, but you got females that work there into cleaning. Or hold on, he was into cleaning, and yet you got females that are in fact into cleaning as well as doing housekeeping type work like he does, but also cooking type of work. So there is departments at even shelters. Could he have been befriended one of those individuals, depending on how long he worked there or even how short, right? So I know bonding sometimes is formed over time, and yet not for everybody, right? And so in me asking that, could he have given Relisha off to somebody that worked at the shelter, a female or a male, and could either one of them individuals have been involved in, say, sex trafficking or something, as in worked in sex trafficking or been into that type of stuff or whatnot, or knew somebody that was a ringleader of those type of things in the DC area or something like that, just giving her off or something and not bringing her back. Because to be giving somebody off in some sex trafficking is to know they are in fact not coming back. That's how it happens, right? So I'm just wondering. Let me see. Yep. Also, and that sounds like when I spoke on the Asia Degree case. Asia Degree. I got videos on her on a playlist right here on my YouTube account. But when I'm asking any when I stated that during about the Asia Degree case in various of my videos, such as the neighbor, if a neighbor could have moved out, because see, look, pertaining to this case, say if Kahlil was friends with a female that worked at the shelter, right, and say he handed Relisha off to that individual, I'm in question of if that individual was still working at the shelter after Relisha went missing. A female or a male? A female or a male he might have handed the child off to, whether it was sex trafficking or not, and if say that individual was still working at the shelter after Relisha went missing, or did they quit, as in stop working at the actual shelter that Kahlil and that individual was working at, say if he did hand her off to somebody, female or male, and say they were involved in sex trafficking or not. Only police, FBI would know that sort of thing, and me questioning that, as in there will be work records, such as on copy the file aspect pertaining to, say, if a child goes missing and then somebody at the shelter just all of a sudden stop working or quit working or just abruptly leave or something and say, okay, I'm done working here, and yet they may give a reason of why they're leaving working there at the shelter, or they maybe not, they might just stop showing up or something. So that's what I'm in question of, that too, because right after Relisha goes missing, then Kahlil kills his wife, and then he also kills himself. I'm saying the time period, you have weeks and all that other stuff of how stuff was set up by himself, or possibly not alone by himself, but yeah, could he have given her off to anybody that was at the shelter? Because see, if somebody was, if he gave her off to somebody, right, that worked at the shelter, whether female or male, and they stopped coming to work, as in showing up or something crazy like that, that is to say they could have played a part in that, right? And not only that, I said they could have moved to another city or state or something, but they could have taken the child with them. That's why I'm asking to look all over the place, as in visually myself, is to be able to see what could have happened or what might not have happened. And so that's why I'm speaking on that sort of thing. But it's just a question. Shouts out to Lovely T. She got herself on record right there. If you want to follow, you see that? Her name, while she questions just the way that I question. Everybody is standing in question, because you're wondering, how did many of these children come up missing to begin with? It always involved people in their world. A lot of times, don't let people tell you, oh, it's some stranger danger, somebody randomly took a child. No, more than likely their parent had something to involve. Their parent was either involved in that, or somebody that was close to the parent had something to do with that. I don't fall for, oh, some stranger danger. No, don't think so. I really don't think so at all. That type of thing I don't fall for, as in I don't get with the hype. I look deeper up underneath that sort of thing. I do. And you should too. Because that shows you how the world operates when stuff like that happen. When you say, well, how, that don't make sense. No, it really don't. It probably never will, right? And so, yeah, so maybe Andrea had a major dispute with Kahlil before he and she died. I stated that when I said, well, why did they divorce, Kahlil and Andrea, right? Andrea Tatum. Why did they divorce? Did I show that, the photo? I think I did show Andrea Tatum's picture. Or could they have had, say, a major dispute with one another? And say maybe she could have did something with the child. such as sold her or all the rest, we don't even know, right? Let me see. Andrea Tatum. That's in fact Andrea Tatum all by her lonesome self. That photo right there is in fact Andrea Tatum, the wife of Kahlil Tatum, or should I say ex-wife, seeming he divorced her right before death, a month before death. Let me see. Trying to screw. That is a will. Yes. Andrea Tatum and Kahlil Tatum. You have to question that. This is their photo right here where they look all happy. Who knows? Because even couples don't tell truly and really what they feel about each other. Kahlil Tatum, Andrea Tatum. Nobody knows that sort of thing. But the dispute aspect of if they could have been fighting or something before they got a divorce. And say even in that, if Andrea would have wanted to get rid of Relisha or something. And it's so odd because we don't know the relationship of the child between Relisha and Kahlil. Why would Andrea want to get rid of a child in the first place? There has to be a definite reason outside of just a sex trafficking thing. Because see, I stated that before. Andrea, see, it has to be more to that. As in, I don't think no, Gerald Wills has to in fact be wrong. I'm saying the proven part, I probably could even prove him wrong. That has to in fact be wrong, where Gerald Wills stated, well, the reason why Kahlil killed Andrea Tatum is because she knew and discovered or something that Kahlil was selling Relisha and sex trafficking. I don't think that, because see, Andrea and herself had to have did some sex trafficking or something, prostitution. I stated that many times in my other video herself. Andrea had had to have known to sell her body, as well as to actually have seen other children or something involved in that sort of thing. I think Gerald Wills was wrong, and I'm thinking he had played a part in prostitution as well as Kahlil Tatum, pertaining to selling Andrea maybe themselves and her selling her own self. I think he just said that for fame purposes, how people get their 15 minutes of fame, getting on camera saying this and saying that, knowing what they saying is more likely wrong. Because see, to be in prostitution to Andrea Tatum, and which she had to have been, because to be that desperate for drugs is to know you're going to sell your body at any time of the day. And not only that, your man might in fact pimp you out because he had drug issues as well, right? But you in fact know that even young children get into that sort of thing. And for you to be, say, a drug addict such as Andrea Tatum for how many years she has, and to get that desperate for some drugs, and some people even fall on their knees needing some drugs as in a fix, right? That's to say she has seen enough in her life up until her death, possibly to not even say whether a child was being sex trafficked by her own husband or ex-husband. Unless she got mad and said it out her mouth, as in threatened what she was going to tell to him right after they got a divorce, or around the time they got divorced. Maybe she got mad at Kahlil and threatened to tell the authorities of, say, if she knew that the child was being sex trafficked, and maybe that's why he killed her. Who knows? But I'm thinking for a woman to be as old as she was and have lived through many things, and possibly even prostituting her own body for drugs or whatnot, Andrea Tatum, it's to say she had to have known even children get into those sort of things by the hand of grown men. Yes, and possibly even could have been her husband. But to live through that is to almost, what's the word for it? What's that? Be desensitized in a sense. Your mind in a sense become desensitized to the fact that you done been around prostitution, and you know all type of people is into it, even children, enough for you not to even say, even if your own husband is doing it, because y'all might have in fact been prostituting with one another, you and your husband, as in you being a woman desperate for drugs and allowing your husband once again to pimp you out. And that's why I said she might not have told on Kahlil doing that if he did that to Relisha, despite Relisha being 8 years old. You got all type of people that are in fact on drugs, even Shamika herself or something, if Andrea really knew the child's mother full blown enough to say whether, because that's just crackhead activity. Andrea herself, what she was involved in and what she was known to do. So why would she even tell the authorities? The only way she would have told authorities on Kahlil is if she had real bad hatred for him, which is why I said I question their marriage. If she just came out, I'm repeating again, and I should, because that's to consider, if she just threatened him, oh, I'm going to tell authorities, and not only that, I hate you, I can't stand you, and I want a divorce. That sort of thing I'm thinking possibly would have happened a month before Relisha came up missing or something like that. And then in her threatening to him, oh, I'm out of anger, bitterness over something, like couples have disputes, then maybe Kahlil felt like, okay, well, I'm going to kill Andrea for throwing in my face that she's going to tell authorities that I was sex trafficking the little girl, which is not my child. That's the only way I can see something like that happening or something. The major dispute. Couples always have some type of dispute. Sometimes it could get major. You're putting your hands on each other, right? Or sometimes even screaming where other people outside can hear you outside your house or motel, hotel room. So let me see. And that wasn't stated. Depending on if Andrea lived at that motel Red Roof Inn, it wasn't stated by FBI whether like Scott was saying when he commented yes to me and said, well, you know, in motels people are known to hear stuff because you're in the same closed up environment. Next door you got walls that are real thin. Nobody stated whether Andrea was heard arguing with Kahlil, is what I'm trying to state. So FBI would have that information. So when I said about why did they divorce or whatnot, and Andrea no longer wanting to be with Kahlil, when I said, well, maybe Kahlil killed Andrea because he couldn't take the fact that she wanted to leave him. Some men, in fact, get obsessed with the woman that they're with, and they can't take that sort of thing, as in a woman leaving them. And maybe that was one of those cases. Maybe this is one of those cases where he couldn't, in fact, take that. Her leaving him. That's what I'm trying to say. Maybe that's why he killed her or something. Outside of people questioning, well, maybe because of sex trafficking thing of Relisha, maybe that's why. Maybe he just didn't. Yeah. I mean, it just seemed like it's much more to that. Much more to everything. There have been, in fact, grown men to kill not only their wives or girlfriends. Yes. You got exes that kill their wives, or you got exes that, in fact, kill their ex-girlfriends, right? Because she wants to leave him. Remember Facebook Live when the one guy killed that 70-year-old man and then killed himself? It was because his girlfriend no longer wanted him. He killed that old 70-year-old something man, 80-year-old man, right, live for everybody to see on Facebook Live. Some men can't deal with being left by their woman. They don't even know what to do with themselves, right? Those type of people you wouldn't want to be involved with because they put everybody in harm's way. But yeah, I'm thinking, let me see. Yep, I said that in my other video. If Kahlil was known because, see, his nephew said he was living on hard times, as in he struggled with poverty, right? And then you question, well, why you're living in a motel, hotel, Red Roof Inn that cost about the same amount as, say, living in a cheap house you're renting, or living in a cheap apartment or something, right? You ask that, so let me see. Because I wanted to know the drug aspect, if he was selling drugs or if he was into sex trafficking, right, on a lower scale, right? Let me see. I asked that. Let me see. Being picked up on surveillance cameras. I'm thinking if he would have been involved in other stuff such as drugs and drug selling or doing drug deal transactions or something, or some sex trafficking, I'm thinking it would have been found out some type of way or something. And yet it wasn't. You see. Drugs more than anything. I just think with Kahlil, something about him spells drug dealing more so than sex trafficking children. Something about his aura spells more so drug dealing, possibly drug selling, drug transactions more than sex trafficking. Unless, say, he was selling Andrea or something. And not really children, but nobody knows because this case is everywhere. Yes, men are known to sell some. Let me see. Their own wives. Many men, not all men, not many men, but a small, medium, mid-size percentage of men are known to sell, yes, their own wives to make a quick dollar. That prostitution of Andrea, but it just don't seem right for him to be selling a child. I don't know why. It just don't seem. I don't know. Maybe it seemed like he was sex trafficking Relisha because of the whole hotel stay of her coming in and out with him and them not being blood relatives or something. Did I ask that question of if Kahlil and Shamika, the child's mother, could have been related? Did I ask that? I should make a video about that. If Relisha's mother and Kahlil could have been related, and yet her not saying anything. Because people keep so many secrets, right? They do. So, let me see. I got a lot of stuff running on this laptop, which is why I keep pausing. But yeah, that is so sad. I'm gonna be making some more videos as I go along, right? But what do you think and you sense and you feel? What will be a reason of, say, having a child, your child be at some sleepovers? What type of game is even that all about, as in the reveal? Why would I want my 8-year-old all over the place with some man? Some man that I've lied about not knowing, and come to find out you tell the truth that you knew him. Where does a child go? That is unclear in itself. That shows the mother might more than likely have unstable issues. And I said that. I repeat, and it's good to repeat. But yes, Discovery. We are right now at discovery.com. If you can see that on screen, I'm sure you can, right? To find the Discovery Channel. To view the Discovery Channel. Come to discovery.com. www.discovery.com. There's that IBM logo all over again. Did I speak about IBM? And yet when it comes to Discovery right here, that in a sense on the screen, it looks good, but it didn't look good when I first went on the one website that I went on. I was showing you, it blocked the whole everything. So some of the shows, you can in fact check this out, the listing of the shows as well as the schedule and all the rest. You can actually to sign up for, yes, be on the mailing list to receive all type of good things and goodies and all that other stuff you might in fact need in life to help improve your life. And I think that's all for today for this video. Let me pause 1 second. Let me see something. Hold on. Oops. I don't know what I did with that. I'm gonna be creating some videos pertaining to when Cece asked me about Jolie Musa. I'm gonna make some videos about that, but that come later because I had to in fact like file that down as in to take notes as well as make some good questions, right? So I don't want to just be throwing stuff on here and fumbling along with that. I'm going to in fact get with the program my own and putting it all together, but that's going to take time because I don't really want to be, when I do missing children cases right here on YouTube, I don't really want to be crossing, zigzagging between cases, because that's how you get mixed up when you start fumbling your words and saying something pertaining to one child's case and then you say it on the wrong video for the wrong missing child, right? Does that make sense? So yeah, Jolie Musa, that's how if that's specifically how you say her name. I'm making some videos about her as well. So yes, I'm gonna end this video out, and I hope you like and enjoyed the video, and hope you enjoy your day. And I'm gone. I'll be back. I will in fact be back. I hope you be back as well. Enjoy your day.